In the twilight of a distant rim world, Viridian Four's toxic orange skies cast an oppressive gloom over the sprawling prison complex known as the Shard. Jagged black crystal mesas surrounded the facility, their sharp edges seeming to pierce the horizon like ancient weapons. The prison's architecture fused brutalist metal grates with alien bioluminescent growths that pulsed faintly in the perpetual dusk, creating an unsettling juxtaposition of the manufactured and the organic. Captain Alex Mercer awoke disoriented in a cramped holding cell, his head throbbing. The last thing he remembered was being escorted onto a transport vessel, accused of treason against the Interstellar Coalition. He rubbed his temples, trying to piece together how he'd ended up here. 3 months ago, he'd been negotiating peace between two warring matriarchal alien houses on Selene 7. Now, framed for providing coalition intelligence to terrorists, he found himself unceremoniously extradited to this hellhole. Through the translucent force field of his cell, Alex observed the corridor outside. Unlike any prison he'd ever seen, the walls seemed almost alive, pulsing with a faint blue glow. The distant sound of metallic clangs echoed through the facility, punctuated by occasional shouting in languages his universal translator struggled to decipher. "Prisoner 7734, stand and face the wall." The metallic voice startled him. Alex complied, placing his hands against the cold, slightly damp surface. The force field deactivated with a hum, and he felt the presence of someone entering his cell. "Turn slowly." Alex rotated to face a slender, serpentine figure. A Sirath officer stood before him, her violet scales shimmering under the neon lights. Her elongated pupils contracted as she assessed him. "I am Sergeant Lyra," she said, her forked tongue briefly testing the air between them. "Welcome to the deep end, human." "Where exactly am I?" Alex asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. "The Shard, Viridian Four's premier detention facility for female political dissidents," Lyra replied with a cold efficiency. "You're the first male ever granted the privilege of residency." Alex's confusion must have shown on his face. "The warden has special interest in your case," Lyra explained, motioning for him to follow her into the corridor. "Your orientation begins now." As they walked, Alex noticed every cell they passed contained non-human females of various species. Some watched him with curiosity, others with open hostility. The realization struck him with the force of a gravitational anomaly. He was the only man in what appeared to be an exclusively female prison. Lyra led him through a series of security checkpoints, each more imposing than the last. Finally, they arrived at a wide, circular chamber that appeared to be some kind of assembly hall. "Wait here," she instructed, before retreating to the perimeter of the room. Alex stood alone in the center, as dozens of female prisoners from 4 distinct species filed in, arranging themselves in loose formations. He recognized the serpentine Sirath with their iridescent scales, the Zephyrians with their translucent wings folded behind slender frames, the multi-limbed Myrani with their chitinous exoskeletons, and the amphibious Villani, their skin faintly luminescent in the dim light. From the shadowed observation deck above, a figure watched through mirrored visor. Warden Nyx Ardris, her silver hair shaved close to her scalp, studied the human with detached interest. Nanotech filigree lined her temples, pulsing with data streams as she accessed his file. A useful variable, she thought, one that might accelerate her research considerably. Back in the chamber, the crowd parted as a tall Zephyrian woman approached, her aqua eyes fixed on Alex with a penetrating gaze that seemed to assess not just his physical presence but something deeper. "I am Commander Velaziria," she announced, her wings briefly extending in what Alex recognized as a display of authority. "This installation runs on discipline, not charm. One false move, human, and your food." The assembled inmates murmured and exchanged glances. Alex felt their judgment washing over him like a wave, carrying undercurrents of curiosity, hostility, and something else, a strange sense of possibility. In that moment, he realized he was more than just a curiosity. He was a potential instrument of division or unity. As he stood surrounded by alien women who regarded him as either threat or opportunity, Alex made a silent vow. Framed or not, I'm not here to die. I'll find the double-crossers who set me up, starting from within. This determination hardened into resolve, becoming the core that would drive him forward through whatever trials awaited. Block A, Vela announced. The depths. That's your assignment. 2 junior inmates approached to escort him away. As they left the orientation chamber, Alex could feel the weight of dozens of eyes following his every move, calculating what his presence might mean for the delicate balance of power within the shard. The journey to Block A took them deeper into the facility, descending through narrow stairwells until they reached a subterranean level, dimly lit by streaks of bioluminescent lichen. The air here was damp and carried a faint mineral scent. Alex's escorts, a young Myrani and a Villani who refused to meet his gaze, brought him to a Spartan cell, barely large enough for a sleeping platform, and waste reclamation unit. Morning rations at 7th bell. Work detail at 8th. Deviation results in correction, the Myrani stated flatly before they left him alone. Alex sat on the hard platform, taking stock of his new reality. Through observation and the snippets of information he'd gathered, he began piecing together the shard structure. Each block was governed by a dominant species faction. Block A belonged to the Sirath, B to the Myrani, C to the Zephyrians, and D to the Villani. The shared cafeteria, referred to as the Pit, was divided into quadrants, with territorial markers clearly delineating faction boundaries. His musings were interrupted by heavy footfalls outside his cell. A burly Sirath with battle scars crisscrossing her scales appeared at the entrance. "So you're the novelty," she said, her voice a low rumble. "I am Sergeant Soraka. You follow my orders in Block A?" Alex stood, maintaining eye contact but keeping his posture non-threatening. "Captain Alex Mercer, former Coalition Navy." Soraka made a dismissive sound. "This isn't a charity, Marine. Your uniform won't save you." She tossed a thin data pad at his feet. "Block schedule. Water is rationed. Protein supplements for those who earn them." With that, she turned and left, scales rasping against the stone floor. Alex picked up the data pad, but found it locked to all but the most basic scheduling information. As he attempted to navigate its limited functions, he noticed movement at the corner of his vision. A petite, multi-limbed Myrani woman observed him from the shadows of the corridor. When their eyes met, she didn't retreat. "The protocols are counterintuitive by design," she said softly. "A security feature." She approached cautiously, reaching into a hidden pocket to withdraw a scrap of what looked like flexible membrane. On it was scrawled a list in various languages, some form of inmate code. "Why help me?" Alex asked as she passed it to him. "Scientific curiosity," she replied. "I'm Dr. Ori Valen, former Myrani science officer." She glanced over her shoulder. "You're either a catalyst or a contaminant in their experiment. I'm curious which you'll prove to be." Before Alex could question her further, she slipped away, multiple limbs moving in perfect coordination as she disappeared into the shadows. Alex studied the makeshift guide. It contained unwritten rules of the shard, which guards could be bribed, which areas were claimed by which factions, how to recognize warnings of impending conflicts. Already, he was beginning to understand that his survival would depend on more than just physical endurance. It would require navigating complex interspecies politics. The following day, Alex experienced his first taste of the pit during scheduled meal distribution. The cavernous chamber buzzed with tension as inmates queued for nutrient slurry dispensed from wall-mounted troughs. Each faction kept to its designated quadrant, mixing only at the distribution points. Alex observed that the Myrani servers were giving slightly larger portions to their own kind. A group of Sirath noticed as well, their scales bristling with agitation. "Protein thieves," hissed a tall Sirath warrior, advancing toward the serving station. "You hoard what belongs to all." The Myrani server's antennae flattened against her head. "The allocations are identical. Your perception is flawed." As voices raised and inmates began to cluster, according to factional lines, Alex saw guards along the perimeter, reaching for stun batons. In the momentary chaos, he spotted Commander Vela and a Volani woman, presumably Captain Lyra, observing from opposite sides of the chamber. Lyra's skin emitted a faint blue glow that seemed to intensify as the tension rose. Without fully considering the consequences, Alex stepped into the space between the confrontational Sirath and the Myrani server. He raised his hands, palms open in a universal gesture of peace. "The slurry tastes the same no matter who serves it," he said, keeping his voice calm but projecting it enough to be heard. "And conflict here only benefits those watching from above." He tilted his head subtly toward the observation platform, where guards monitored the situation. The Sirath warrior's forked tongue flicked rapidly, tasting his fear, but also his resolve. After a tense moment, she stepped back, though her posture remained hostile. "The human speaks sense," came a melodious voice. Captain Lyra had approached, her amphibious features set in a diplomatic expression. "Energy wasted on conflict cannot be spent on survival." The crowd gradually dispersed, returning to their meals with occasional backward glances. As Alex collected his ration, he felt a presence beside him. "You quieted a Sirath without drawing a plasma blade. Why?" Commander Vela asked. Her wings folded tightly against her back. Alex met her gaze. "Because conflict here only benefits Warden Nix. Divided, you die alone. United, you survive." Vela's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in consideration. "An interesting theory, Captain." She studied him for a moment longer. "Most new arrivals require weeks to decipher faction dynamics. You've managed it in a day." "I was a diplomatic liaison before this," Alex replied, gesturing to the prison around them. "Indeed." Vela's expression remained unreadable. "We shall see if your diplomatic skills extend beyond meal disputes." She moved away, but not before adding, "Watch your water ration. There have been irregularities in the recycling system." Later, as Alex returned to his cell, Lyra approached him in a less populated corridor. Unlike the Zephyrian commander's cool assessment, the Volani leader's manner was warmer, though no less cautious. "Your words carry weight," she said, her skin pulsing with gentle luminescence. "Though your species rarely walks where we do." Her large, liquid eyes studied him. "If you can maintain balance, I'll watch your back." "I appreciate that," Alex responded, "though I sense there's more happening here than simple factional disputes." Lyra's gills fluttered in what might have been a sigh. "Perceptive. But walls have sensors here, Captain. Conversations like this should happen elsewhere." She touched his arm briefly, a gesture that sent a strange, warm sensation through him, before continuing on her way. That night, Alex lay awake on his hard sleeping platform, processing the day's events. The Shard was more than a prison. It was a pressure cooker of interspecies tensions. Yet beneath the surface hostilities, he sensed a deeper current, a shared resentment of their captivity and of Warden Nix's mysterious agenda. His contemplation was interrupted by a sudden dimming of the already low lighting, followed by an announcement over the facility's communication system. "Water conservation protocol initiated. All cells reduced to minimal supply until further notice." Almost immediately, voices of protest rose throughout Block A. Water on Viridian 4 was more than just sustenance. Many species, particularly the Volani, required regular hydration to maintain basic functions. A shortage meant suffering, potentially death for some. Over the next day, suspicion flared throughout the blocks. Did the Myrani sabotage the recyclers to gain leverage? Or did the Serath tamper with the distribution system to assert dominance? As inmates scrambled for safe drinking water, Alex recalled his naval survival training. He began organizing a rational distribution system within Block A, suggesting collection methods for condensation and ways to purify the limited supply. Sergeant Siraka, initially skeptical, grudgingly acknowledged the effectiveness of his approach. "The humans' methods work," she admitted to her Serath subordinates. "Implement them." Word spread to other blocks, and inmates began adopting similar conservation techniques. By the second day of the shortage, Alex had earned wary respect from enough inmates to gain limited access to the maintenance corridors connecting the blocks. It was there, while examining a junction box, that Dr. Ori found him. "You're either very brave or very foolish," she said, multiple limbs working simultaneously to scan for surveillance. "But your water management protocols have preserved 14 lives already. Impressive adaptation." "The recycler failure seems too convenient," Alex replied, keeping his voice low. "Have you found anything in your sector?" Ori's compound eyes reflected the dim maintenance lights. "Perhaps. There's an anomaly in the influent control line, but it would require access to restricted areas to investigate properly." "Could you show me?" Alex asked. Ori hesitated, then nodded. "Tonight, during third shift reduction, meet me at processing channel 6. That night, Alex slipped away from his cell during the brief period when guard patrols were thinnest. He navigated through the maintenance tunnels using the crude map he'd memorized from Ori's guide. At processing channel 6, the Myrani scientist was already waiting, her exoskeleton barely visible in the low light. "We have 18 minutes before the next patrol," she whispered, leading him deeper into the tunnel network. They descended through increasingly narrow passages until they reached a hidden control valve in what Ori identified as the boundary of the Zephyrian sector. The valve showed clear signs of tampering, not crude sabotage, but precise modification. "This was disabled remotely," Ori confirmed, her sensitive appendages examining the mechanism. "The command would have originated from the administrative wing." "Warden Nix's territory," Alex murmured. "Indeed, but why would she—" They froze at the sound of movement further down the passage. Alex motioned for silence, pulling Ori into a recessed alcove. 2 security drones drifted past, their sensor arrays sweeping methodically through the darkness. Once the danger passed, they made their way back toward safer territory. As they neared the junction that would return them to their respective blocks, Alex asked, "What does Nix gain from creating a water crisis?" Ori's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "Division, data, reaction patterns." She glanced at him. "You're a new variable in her experiment, Captain. She's likely testing how your presence affects established dynamics." "What experiment?" Alex pressed. "That," came a new voice from the shadows, "is what we've been trying to determine." Commander Vela emerged from a hidden accessway, her wings slightly extended in the confined space. Beside her stood Captain Lyra, her skin emitting a soft blue glow that illuminated their faces. "A midnight council," Vela observed dryly. "How clandestine." "We were investigating the water shortage," Alex explained. "As were we," Lyra replied. Her empathic aura brushed against Alex's consciousness, not invasive, but questioning. "The valve was tampered with," Ori reported, "remotely, from administration." Vela's expression hardened. "So our suspicions are confirmed. Nix engineered this crisis." "But why?" Alex asked. "Walk with us," Vela said. "There's something you should see." They traversed a series of increasingly obscure passages until they reached what appeared to be an abandoned monitoring station. Once inside, Lyra activated a makeshift privacy field, likely constructed from modified prison technology. "We can speak freely here," she said, "for about 15 minutes before the system detects the anomaly." In the dim light of Lyra's bioluminescence, Vela began to explain. "The shard isn't just a prison. It's a laboratory. Nix has been conducting psychological profiling on all inmates, data that could be sold to galactic arms brokers. Or worse," Lyra added, "used to develop targeted neural weapons." "How do you know this?" Alex asked. Vela's wings rustled softly. "I was once a peace emissary between the Zephyrian houses. My family was slaughtered by rivals who somehow knew our every vulnerability, our exact psychological breaking points. The data came from here," Lyra continued. "I was the youngest Volani chieftain, forced into leadership because of my empathic gift. I discovered transmissions being sent to those who would weaponize our emotional patterns. The gravity of their situation sank in. And now Nix is using the water crisis to study how we respond to resource scarcity," Alex concluded. "Precisely," Ori confirmed. "Each crisis provides new data points." Alex considered this information. "If we're going to expose this operation, we need hard evidence." "That's where you come in," Vela said. "As the only male, you're under different surveillance parameters. You might access areas we cannot." "I'll do whatever I can," Alex said firmly. "This exploitation has to end." Lyra's empathic aura intensified as she sensed his sincerity, almost unconsciously. Alex reached out, lightly touching her hand. The contact sent a ripple of warmth through her luminescent skin, and for a brief moment, their emotional states aligned, determination mingled with hope. "The field is weakening," Ori warned. "We should disperse." As they prepared to separate, Alex made a quiet pledge. "I'll help you expose the truth and regain your autonomy, whatever it takes." Vela's eyes met his, and he saw something new there, a cautious trust in his strategic mind. Lyra's belief in his sincerity manifested as a gentle pulse of blue light. "Until next time, Captain," Vela said softly before slipping away into the darkness. Over the next several days, Alex established a routine that allowed him to observe the Shard's operations while gradually earning trust across factions. He volunteered for additional work details, gaining access to different areas of the facility. During one such assignment cleaning the medical bay, he discovered Dr. Ori had smuggled a datapad from the Myrani laboratories. Late that night, in the relative privacy of his cell during low-power hours, Alex reviewed the files Ori had transferred to him. The datapad contained blueprints for a mind-mapping device, a sophisticated neural scanner that could record and potentially manipulate inmates' thought patterns. According to the technical specifications, Warden Nix had been developing what she called Protocol 7, a method to rewrite neural pathways to create compliant subjects. As Alex scrolled through the disturbing details, a faint vibration alerted him to danger. He quickly concealed the datapad, just as the lighting in his cell shifted to inspection mode. Through the translucent door, he could see the silhouette of a surveillance drone hovering in the corridor. Its scanning beam swept through his cell. Alex feigned sleep, controlling his breathing while his heart raced. The drone lingered longer than usual, its sensors probing every corner. Finally, it moved on to the next cell. Once it was gone, Alex retrieved the datapad and continued reviewing the files. The more he read, the clearer it became. Nix wasn't just studying the inmates. She was preparing to fundamentally alter their minds. The following day, as Alex returned from his work detail, he was intercepted by a security detail and escorted to an unfamiliar section of the Shard. They brought him to a sterile, white room where Warden Nix herself waited, her silver hair and nanotech implants gleaming under harsh lighting. "Captain Mercer," she said, her voice as cold and precise as a surgical instrument. "I've been monitoring your adjustment." Alex maintained a neutral expression. "I'm adapting, Warden." Nix circled him slowly, her mirrored visor revealing nothing of her eyes. "You've become quite the diplomat, quelling tensions, establishing cross-factional connections." She paused. "Curious behavior for a man accused of treason." "Perhaps I was wrongfully accused," Alex replied evenly. "Perhaps—" Nix stopped directly in front of him. "Or perhaps you're exactly where certain interests want you to be." The implication hung in the air between them. Was she suggesting his placement here was deliberate, part of some larger scheme? "I'm just trying to survive," Alex said. "As are we all." Nix gestured to a holographic display that materialized beside her. It showed heat maps of the shard, tracking movement patterns of inmates. "Do you know what I see here, Captain? I see chaos slowly organizing itself, entropy reversing. Quite fascinating, from a scientific perspective." She dismissed the display with a flick of her wrist. "I'll be observing your continued influence with great interest. In the meantime, remember that this installation is not your home. It is my design. Every inmate's neural signature has been mapped and analyzed, yours included. Cooperate or be overwritten." The threat was clear, and Alex felt a chill despite the room's regulated temperature. As guards escorted him back to Block A, he realized that time was running short. Whatever Nix was planning with her Protocol 7, it was advancing rapidly. That evening in the mess hall, Alex noticed an unusual pattern. The faction leaders, Vela, Lyra, and a Myrani he hadn't formally met, were all present simultaneously, something that rarely occurred. They maintained distance from each other, but their positioning created a rough triangle with Alex at its center. As he finished his meal, Dr. Ori passed behind him, murmuring, "Maintenance Shaft 12, midnight." At the appointed time, Alex navigated through the now familiar maintenance network to Shaft 12, a narrow vertical tube that connected multiple levels, descending via emergency rungs. He found himself in a hidden alcove beneath Block B. Vela, Lyra, and Ori were already present, along with a stoic Myrani militant he hadn't met before. "Captain," Vela acknowledged, "this is Commander Sharates, former officer of the Myrani Expeditionary Force." Shara's multiple limbs remained in a formal posture as she assessed him. "So this is the token human who's been disrupting Nix's experiments." "Disrupting is precisely what we need," Lyra interjected, her skin pulsing with urgency. "Alex has confirmed our suspicions about Protocol 7. Alex quickly briefed them on what he'd discovered: the neural mapping technology, the rewriting capabilities, the imminent implementation. "Nix isn't just studying you," he concluded. "She's preparing to rewrite your minds for some kind of weaponization program." "We suspected as much," Vela said grimly. "The question is, what can we do to stop it?" "We need to access Block X," Alex stated. "The administrative sector, that's where Nix's private lab and mainframe are located." "Impossible," Shara declared. "The security there is impenetrable. Biometric locks, drone patrols, neural scanners." "Nothing is impenetrable with the right approach," Alex countered. "Dr. Ori, could you repurpose any of the mind mapping tech to create a countermeasure?" Ori's compound eyes glinted in the dim light. "Theoretically, I would need components from the medical bay and access to a programming terminal." "I can arrange that," Lyra offered. "My work detail includes medical waste disposal." "And I know where to find a terminal with minimal surveillance," Vela added. Alex felt a surge of hope as a plan began to take shape. "If we work together, all four factions, we can create a diversion significant enough to get a small team into Block X." Commander Shara's antennae twitched skeptically. "And why should we trust you, human? How do we know this isn't another layer of Nix's experiment?" The question hung in the air. Alex felt Lyra's empathic aura gently probing his emotions, seeking sincerity. "Because I have as much to lose as you do," he answered honestly. "I was framed for treason by the same people who are funding Nix's research. If I don't stop this, I'll never clear my name, and you'll lose your minds. Literally. Shara studied him for a long moment before nodding curtly. Very well. We form a tri-faction alliance. Our immediate goal: prevent Nix from uploading the mind control firmware. As they outlined their plan, Alex wrestled with an internal conflict. Part of him needed to focus on gathering evidence to clear his name, proof of who had really sold coalition secrets to terrorists. But the more immediate crisis demanded his full attention. If he didn't help stop Protocol 7, these women would become puppets in someone else's war. He made his choice. The inmate's freedom came first. His exoneration would have to wait. Over the next week, the Alliance worked in careful secrecy. Ori constructed a neural disruptor, using components smuggled from various work details. Vela's Zephyrians mapped drone patrol patterns and identified blind spots in the surveillance network. Lyra's Vellani cultivated sympathizers among the lower-ranking guards, gathering intelligence on security protocols. Commander Shara's Myrani technicians prepared to trigger a controlled power fluctuation that would briefly disable secondary systems. The plan crystallized. Under cover of a simulated power outage, a small team would infiltrate Block X, locate the central neural interface console, and install Ori's override chip to permanently disable Protocol 7. The night before their operation, Alex found himself alone with Lyra in a rarely used storage compartment, finalizing their timing. "Are you afraid?" she asked, her empathic sense clearly detecting his underlying tension. "Cautious," Alex corrected. "There are many variables." Lyra's skin glowed softly in the darkness. "I sense something else. A conflict within you." Alex hesitated, then admitted, "I came here determined to clear my name, to expose whoever framed me. Now I'm risking everything for a different cause." "Are they so different?" Lyra asked. "The forces that imprisoned you are the same ones that would enslave our minds." "True," Alex acknowledged, "but if tomorrow fails—" "Then we will have failed together," Lyra said, her hand lightly touching his arm. The contact sent a warm current through him. Not manipulation, but genuine empathic connection. Unity in diversity, as you've taught us. The moment lingered, neither of them acknowledging the deeper current beneath their words. Finally, Alex nodded. "Tomorrow, then—" "Tomorrow," Lyra echoed, her luminescence briefly intensifying before she slipped away. The day of infiltration arrived with a tense calm settling over the Shard. Inmates went about their routines while faction leaders discreetly positioned key personnel. Alex observed Warden Nix making a rare appearance in the main quadrangle, her silver hair and mirrored visor reflecting the facility's harsh lighting as she conducted an inspection. At precisely 1500 hours, the operation began. In the power regulation chamber, Myrani technicians initiated a controlled surge that cascaded through non-essential systems. Lights flickered and dimmed across multiple blocks. Alarm protocols activated, drawing security personnel toward designated containment areas. Under cover of the commotion, Alex, Vela, Lyra, and Dr. Ori slipped into a maintenance shaft that would lead them toward Block X. The administrative wing's corridors gleamed with polished chrome, a stark contrast to the utilitarian grimness of the inmate sectors. Tinted windows lined the hallways, showing glimpses of laboratories where holographic displays showed real-time mind map data of every prisoner. "The central lab is 2 levels up," Ori whispered, consulting a schematic she had memorized. "But we'll need to bypass the biometric lock." "Leave that to me," Vela said. She produced a small device constructed from repurposed medical equipment. Zephyrian telepathic codes combined with Myrani hacking protocols. It should create a temporary override. They encountered the first security barrier, a massive door requiring Nix's DNA signature. Vela applied her device to the scanner. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, the door slid open. "It worked," Alex breathed. "But we have minutes at most before the system detects the anomaly." They moved swiftly through the restricted area, encountering 2 more security checkpoints that yielded to their improvised technology. Finally, they reached the Central Neural Interface Laboratory, a cavernous space dominated by a massive console, surrounded by holographic projections of inmate brain patterns. There, Ori pointed with multiple limbs. The primary uplink node, if we can install the override chip there, it will permanently disable Protocol 7. Alex approached the console, Ori's chip clutched in his hand. The interface was more complex than they had anticipated, with pulsing connections that seemed almost organic in nature. "Hurry," Vela urged, her wings partly extended in tension. "Security will have noticed the access anomalies by now." As Alex prepared to insert the chip, the main doors slid open. Warden Nix stood in the entrance, flanked by 2 heavily augmented enforcer droids. Her visor was retracted, revealing cold gray eyes that surveyed the intruders with clinical detachment. "Impressive," she said, stepping into the laboratory. "You've managed to unite the factions and penetrate my inner sanctum. A fascinating social experiment in itself." "This ends now." "Nix," Alex declared, positioning himself between the warden and his allies. "We know about Protocol 7, about your plans to rewrite their neural pathways." Nix's thin lips curved in a smile devoid of warmth. "You think you can stop progress? These women were chosen for their unique capabilities, to serve the Coalition's future." "You're violating every ethical boundary," Alex shot back. "Their minds are not data points." "Ethics," Nix scoffed. "A primitive constraint on advancement." She raised a hand, and her droids moved forward, weapons activated. "Your interference has provided valuable data, Captain Mercer. But now it's time to conclude this phase of the experiment." She raised a neurostunner rifle, a weapon designed to leave its target a mindless husk. "Perhaps you'll serve as the first demonstration of Protocol 7's effectiveness." As she took aim at Alex, Vela suddenly launched herself into the air, her wings carrying her in a swift arc that placed her between them. Simultaneously, Lyra channeled her empathic energy in a focused burst that temporarily confused the droid's targeting systems. "Now, Alex!" Ori shouted, multiple limbs working furiously at a secondary console. In the chaos that followed, Alex dove toward the primary interface. Nix fired her stunner, the beam narrowly missing him and striking a power conduit instead. Sparks rained from overhead as systems shorted out. The laboratory's lights flickered ominously. Alex reached the console and slammed Ori's override chip into the input port. The system resisted, error messages flashing across holographic displays. He frantically bypassed security protocols using the techniques Ori had taught him, sacrificing part of the console in the process. A facility-wide shutdown alarm activated, its wailing cutting through the laboratory's chaos. The neural maps surrounding them froze, then began to dissolve as the system entered emergency standby. Nix fought to regain control, manipulating her visor's interface to redirect power to the Protocol 7 mainframe. "You can't stop this," she snarled, abandoning her previous clinical demeanor. "The neural rewriter has already mapped every inmate. One command and their minds are mine." She lunged for the emergency override, but Alex intercepted her, grappling for control of the neurostunner. They crashed against a secondary console, triggering cascading failures throughout the system. "It's working!" Ori called out, watching as the neural maps began displaying rebooted statuses. "The rewrite function is being disabled." Nix made one final, desperate attempt. She activated a hidden protocol on her wrist interface, a direct neural attack aimed at Alex himself. "If I can't have them, I'll take you," she hissed. "Your memories of the last 3 months will be erased. You'll be nothing but an empty shell." The targeting beam locked onto Alex's forehead. At the critical moment, Vela interceded again, throwing herself into the path of the beam. She collapsed to the floor, wings splayed out lifelessly. "Vela!" Lyra cried, rushing to the fallen Zephyrian side. Rage surged through Alex. He tore the stunner from Nyx's grasp and turned it on her. "It's over," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Stand down or join the experiment." As a subject, Nyx's eyes darted around the laboratory, calculating odds that were rapidly turning against her. With a snarl of frustration, she backed toward a hidden doorway. "This isn't over, Captain. The Coalition has invested too much to let this facility fall." The door sealed behind her, locking her in a secure sublab. Throughout the shard, the overhead holoscreens displayed cascading rebooted statuses. Each faction leader's neural patterns, once targeted for erasure, now remained intact, protected by Ori's override. Inmates across all blocks sensed the sudden lifting of an oppression many hadn't even realized was present. "Is she?" Alex asked, kneeling beside Vela's still form. Lyra's hands hovered over the Zephyrian, her empathic abilities probing for life signs. "She lives," she confirmed with relief. "But the neural impact was severe. She needs medical attention." "The medical bay," Ori suggested. "Quickly, before Nyx's remaining loyalists realize what's happened." As they carefully transported Vela through the now chaotic corridors of the shard, emergency protocols had sealed most intersections. The power grid had reset to emergency lockdown, isolating Nyx in her hidden chamber, but also complicating their movement. They reached the medical bay to find it already occupied by a mixture of inmates from all factions, many treating minor injuries sustained during the power fluctuations. Seeing the unconscious Zephyrian leader, they quickly made space. "What happened?" asked a Sirath medic, her scales bristling with concern. "Neural stunner," Alex explained. "Took a direct hit protecting us from Nyx." The news spread rapidly through the assembled inmates. Faction rivalries momentarily forgotten. They worked together to stabilize Vela, using the medical bay's equipment with surprising expertise. "She's stabilizing," the Sirath medic announced, after tense minutes of treatment. "Zephyrian neural architecture is remarkably resilient." Relief washed over Alex. He turned to address the gathered inmates, aware that this moment of unity was precious and precarious. "Nyx's control is broken," he told them. "The neural rewriter has been disabled. But we need to secure the facility before her contingency protocols activate." To his amazement, representatives from each faction stepped forward, offering assistance. Even Sergeant Soraka, who had initially treated him with such disdain, grudgingly volunteered her warriors to secure the armory. Within hours, a coordinated effort spread throughout the shard. Faction leaders rallied their people, broadcasting a message through the facility's network. "This is your chance. Stand together." Security stations were occupied by inmates, patrol droids reprogrammed to obey their commands, instead of Nyx's directives. Soraka personally led a team to escort the isolated Nyx to a high-security cell, ensuring she could not access any systems to restore her neural rewriter. Across the complex, minor skirmishes erupted as reluctant guards yielded to the unified inmate force. By nightfall, the shard was under inmate control. In the central courtyard, once known derisively as the Pit, representatives from all four species gathered to determine their next steps. Vela had regained consciousness, though she remained weakened. Supported by Lyra, she addressed the assembly. "Today marks the beginning of a new era for the shard. No longer a prison, but a sanctuary." Lyra's empathic aura extended outward, touching each person, present with a sense of possibility. "We owe our freedom to unity, and to one who came among us as a prisoner, but became our catalyst." All eyes turned to Alex, the weight of their collective gaze, not hostile now, but expectant, settled on him. "I didn't free you," he said honestly. "You freed yourselves by choosing to work together, by refusing to be divided by fear." Commander Shara stepped forward, her military bearing unmistakable. "What of the Coalition? They will not simply allow us to claim this facility." "No, they won't," Alex agreed. "But we have leverage. He revealed the data he had extracted during the chaos, evidence of Project Starfire, the secret coalition-backed program that had framed him and established Nix's neural experiments. With this, we can petition the Interstellar Tribunal for sanctuary status, he explained. Expose the illegal experimentation and force recognition of the Shard as an independent entity. And if they refuse, Soraka challenged. Then we stand together, Commander Shara declared, her multiple limbs moving in a formal gesture of commitment. If you fall, we all fall. We rise together. The assembly erupted in expressions of agreement. Sarath hisses, Zephyrian wing claps, Myrani antenna clicks, and Villani luminescent pulses. Their unanimous decision transformed the Shard from a prison into something unprecedented, a self-governing sanctuary for non-violent female dissidents from across the galaxy. In the days that followed, a new governance model emerged. Vela was elected Consul of Unity, tasked with forging diplomatic ties between what they now called Shardel and external powers. Lyra established emotional wellness councils to ensure no factional resentments resurfaced. Dr. Ori oversaw rehabilitative research, repurposing Nix's technology to heal rather than control. And Alex, though technically still a prisoner, was offered the role of honorary warden, a purely symbolic title acknowledging his sacrifice and contribution. One evening, a week after the liberation, Alex stood on a cliff edge overlooking Viridian Four's black crystal mesas. The toxic orange sky had taken on a strange beauty in the light of the rising twin moons. Behind him, the Shard, now Shardel, pulsed with a gentler light, the harsh neon gradually giving way to natural bioluminescence as inmates reclaimed their environment. He activated a secure datapad, establishing a connection to the Interstellar Tribunal. The evidence of Project Starfire was ready for transmission, proof that would exonerate him and expose the true conspirators. As he prepared to send the data, he heard soft footsteps approaching. Vela and Lyra joined him at the cliff edge, their expressions serene in the moonlight. "Sending your evidence?" Vela asked, her wings gently unfurling in the evening breeze. Alex nodded. "The tribunal will have to acknowledge what happened here. Clear my name." "And then," Lyra's skin glowed softly with inquiry, "will you return to the coalition?" The question gave him pause. He looked back at Shardel, then out at the stark beauty of Viridian Fur. "I'm not sure there's a place for me there anymore. Not after what I've seen. What I've helped create here." Vela's hand lightly touched his shoulder. "There is always a place for you here. Alex Mercer, among us." Lyra's empathic warmth enveloped him, conveying without words what diplomatic protocols might not yet allow her to express directly. "We have only begun to build," she said simply. Alex smiled and transmitted the data. Whatever came next, coalition retaliation, tribunal politics, or the daily challenges of building Shardel, they would face it together. "I arrived here framed and alone," he reflected. "But by refusing to be complicit in fear, I became the catalyst for something greater than any prison, unity in diversity." As they turned back toward their new home, the Shard's harsh architectural lines seemed softer in the moonlight, the bioluminescent growths along its walls pulsing with renewed life. The former prison now stood as a symbol of renewal, of unexpected alliances forged in adversity, of minds liberated not just from external control, but from the prison of prejudice and division. Alex walked beside Vela and Lyra, no longer the outsider, but an integral part of the future they were building together. Behind them, the twin moons of Viridian IV cast their silver light across the black crystal mesas, illuminating a path forward that none of them could have imagined alone.